Good day, everyone. Today, I'll be talking to you on a review of facilities management guidelines for the living environment of the elderly. And my name again is Fama-Akin Ibukoluwadara, a lecturer at the Department of Nigeria. The introduction, the aging situation, many, for instance, India, Indonesia, from 8% of elderly in 2006, the projection is that there will be about 21 and 24 respectively percent in the number of elderly people around significantly to this changing demography. Number one is the life expectancy and the fertility rate. From the table, you can also see that in 2000, the life expectancy, the lowest was Ethiopia from 51, and then it moved to 65 in 2013. And then you can see fertility rate declining significantly. These two factors have been identified as contributing to increase in the number of elderly we have in the world. And now looking at the elderly, they have special peculiarities. They have challenges. Some of the challenges that elderly people face are declining health, limited functional and cognitive ability, pain, inability to sleep, psychological, almost depression, and then some of the time they are retired with limited financial resources. Some of this retirement may be due to inability physically or reaching the retirement age in their specific country. So they have limited financial resources because they are not earning additional income. Then they spend most of their time within their living environment to make up for their deficiencies. And then, so to ensure that the elderly people, most of the elderly people want to age in place. They don't want to move to care homes. So for them to age in place, their living environment must be comfortable for them. That's why it's essential to have universal design standards for the interior facilities of elderly needs. You can see from this chart on elderly. By 2041, it is expected that only 1.8 will be available to take care of one elderly. So we see that the elderly people needing to depend on others will be a catastrophe in the few years to come. That's why it is very essential that aging in place is important. Now, from extensive literature review, we've been able to identify FM components into three basic groups. Number one is space management, which has to do with layout and design of building to enhance the qualities of the living environment. And it encompasses, number one, space. Space, that's the size of the different rooms, space for wheelchair. You can see some of the pictures there, the space there. This is one country in Asia, that's Hong Kong precisely, where I had my PhD program. The space there is limited. Distance between the various rooms. The distance between the various rooms must not be too far because space between bed and wardrobe, and then turning spaces because some of the elderly people might be on wheelchair and they need to maneuver within their living environment. And secondly, we have the building services, which has to do with the effective functioning and fulfillment of elderly needs. Some of the services identified in this study are ventilation, lighting, temperature, fire services, sleep services, water supply, and all the others. Lastly, supporting facilities. Supporting facilities, they enhance the living environment to support the daily life activities of the elderly. Some of this include signage, safety, and level within the living environment. The methodology adopted in this, the study is a review, and so the content analysis was used. We identified international guidelines through various websites of different housing departments of various countries. So the international guidelines were identified, and then a content analysis of those guidelines were done. The criteria for inclusion in this study was that there was an available comprehensive FM guideline for the elderly. The mode is find the FM needs, which I've mentioned earlier, the three basic groups: space management, building services, and supporting facilities, identifying the FM needs of the elderly, and then the requirements of the guidelines that have been identified. The procedure has to do with literature review to identify FM needs which have been done and presented. The electronic search of relevant guidelines, and then identification of key management, building services, and supporting facilities for FM components of elderly residential apartments. Now, for all the identified components, for space management, we have turning spaces. You can see about 9 countries were identified to have detailed FM component guidelines. And then you can see only about 7 of them are guidelines for turning spaces. Some other countries do not have. Clear spaces, only 4 of them have. For sizes of the rooms, only about 4 of them are sizes for specific areas. Some only have for bathroom and toilet size, while only 1 asks for the minimum bedroom size. For the building services, lighting, the lighting, about 6 of them identify lighting. For ventilation, only 2 of them give specific guidelines for ventilation. We have about 6 for temperature, about 5 for electrical fittings, 4 for safety requirement lifts. We have about 6 of them. For fire service, only 2. For the supporting facilities, color, we have only about 5. For the furniture, only 2. For floor finish, only 2. Signage and windows, acoustic, handrails, grab bars. So we can see that for the space management, for the distance between the rooms, no specific guideline was given. For building services, scantily the guidelines were given, and for supporting facilities, some of the guidelines were scantily given. While for handrails, almost all the countries had guidelines for handrails. This is an indication that not many of the countries are prepared to accommodate elderly in their living environment. So there's need for, so that's the essence of this study. So based on the study, there is need for thorough understanding of elderly needs. Some of the guidelines identified above, for instance, like Nepal and India, the guidelines were mainly for disabled people. And the characteristics of elderly people and disabled people, there are differences in, they differ. So there is need for thorough understanding of what the elderly people need. Number 2, there is need for elderly specific design requirements, which is essential for them to live comfortably and to enhance their quality of life. So designers and facilities managers need to identify specific requirements that elderly people need to maintain comfort and quality of life in their living environment. In this study, I've been able to use qualitative, which has to do with content analysis. Quantitative studies can also be ascertained, can also be conducted to ascertain their satisfaction with the current facilities they have in their homes. That would be a good starting point to identify which other areas and facilities they need within their living environment. There's need for anthropological measurement of their physical bodies, and then physical measurement of facilities to provide synergy that will meet elderly needs. Thank you for listening.